Rob here at etrailer.com, and today you're going to be taking a look at the etrailer Class 3 custom fit trailer hitch receiver on our 2019 Ford Escape. Now here's what our hitch is going to look like once we have it installed. It's going to have a really clean, almost factory appearance, and that's because our cross tube is going to be completely hidden behind the bumper, and all we're going to see is that receiver tube sticking out. And the matte black finish on it does lend it to blending in pretty well at the bottom. It's not those high gloss finishes that you typically see on hitches. The flat black is going to hide dirt really well and hide scratches really nicely. But it is a Class 3, so it's going to give us that 2" by 2" receiver tube opening and have the widest variety of options when it comes to accessories that we can mount up. But whether you're going to use your hitch for a ball mount to tow a trailer, put a bike rack in there so we can hit the trail, or if we just need a cargo carrier to free up some space on the inside, all of our accessories are going to mount to the hitch pin hole here on the side. Our hitch is going to accept a standard 5/8 pin and clip. Now these are not included with the hitch, but you can pick them up here at etrailer.com along with some locking devices to make sure your accessories are secure. And if you are going to be towing a trailer, maybe you're taking the jet ski or boat down to the lake, we need a spot to hook up our safety chains. Now, as you can see here, we have plenty of room to get most size hooks on or off, and the fact that the hitch pin is just slightly offset from the center means we're not going to have to worry about interference with our hooks and our pin and clip or a locking device. Now here at etrailer.com, we get a lot of questions about the Escape once the hitch is installed. A lot of customers are wanting to know if their liftgate sensor is going to work with the hitch. Now if your model has the hands-free liftgate sensor, it still will work. We just need to stay away from the center of the hitch, and we just go to either side. Now you want to make sure that the hitch is going to be up to the task you put it to, so as far as the weight rating goes, our hitch is going to have a 350-pound tongue weight. That's going to be the maximum downward force at the end of the receiver tube. And to put that in perspective, that's going to be a good amount of weight so we can carry quite a bit of gear on some of those larger cargo carriers, or get a really large bike rack so we can fit even maybe 4 or 5 bikes on there. Now, as far as the gross trailer weight rating goes, it's going to have a 3,500-pound rating. That's how much the hitch can pull, but that does include the trailer and everything we have loaded on it. Now it is designed to work with weight distribution systems as well, and that's going to be a separate component that's mounted on your trailer. However, that's going to bump the tongue weight up to 500 pounds and the gross trailer weight rating up to 5,000 pounds. But you always want to double check your Escape's owner's manual because you don't want to exceed the manufacturer's recommended weight. I'd like to give you a few measurements. These are going to help you whenever you're looking for accessories for your new hitch. From the center of the hitch pin hole to the outermost edge of the bumper, it's going to be right about 5 inches. Now that measurement's going to come in handy when you're looking at folding accessories to make sure you have enough room to put those accessories in the upright position and they're not going to come in contact with the rear bumper. From the ground to the inside top edge of the receiver tube opening, it's going to be right about 14.5 inches. That measurement's going to help you when you're looking for a ball mount so you can find the appropriate riser drop so you can match it up to your trailer. Now as far as the installation goes, it is going to be a pretty straightforward thing. There's no special tools required and you can do it in your garage at home. But I did find a few things that helped me out to make it a little bit easier. In fact, let's go ahead and do it together. To begin our installation, we want to come to the back of our Escape. Now in your instructions, they aren't going to tell you to do this, but this gray panel right here, the silver one, I like to take this down because this scratches extremely easy and we'll just have more room to put our hitch up. So I'm going to come to the very edge on the inside, right by our tailpipe, and we'll have a push pin. And you'll notice it's going to have a little notch in there, so we're going to grab a flat blade screwdriver. We're going to pop out the center section of the push pin first, and then we can come underneath the bottom and pull the rest of the clip out. Now we're going to have another one on the other side right next to the tailpipe as well. Then if we move to the inside underneath our fascia, right on the outside of our tailpipe, we'll find this little metal clip. Again, we'll take a flat blade screwdriver, kind of want to push in on that tab, and then we'll lift up and that'll release the clip. And we're going to have another one of these on the other side on the edge, so we'll pull that out as well. Then we're going to want to start on the edge, and we're just going to pull outward, and you'll hear the clip starting to release, and we just want to work our way across until we get that whole panel out. And we'll set it aside where it won't get damaged. Next step is going to be lowering our exhaust. Now if we look up at the frame rail right behind our tailpipes, we'll have a hanger that's bolted to the bottom of the frame. So we'll grab a 13mm socket and pull both those bolts out. And we'll have a hanger on the other side in the same location, so we'll remove those as well. Now if we look where we unbolted our hanger from, we'll have our heat shield on the bottom of the frame. And we need to expose the bottom of the frame here, but we want to leave this forward attachment point on our heat shield. And this is the driver's side just for reference. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bend the heat shield down a little bit to about here or so. I'm going to take a pair of cutters. I'm going to cut my heat shield to where at least it goes to about that bend where the bottom of the frame will be exposed. Then we can just fold it out of the way and we can cut it straight across so this entire area will be exposed underneath. Once you have it trimmed, you just want to make sure that the entire bottom of the frame is exposed, but you want to leave as much forward of these holes as you can so we still have that attachment point and we still have protection above our muffler. We're going to trim the passenger side the exact same way. Now once you have your heat shield trimmed, we'll find that oval hole in the bottom of the frame. Now that's going to be our access hole to get our hardware in place. However, you can see that our bolts aren't going to fit even though we might be able to get our blocks in place. So we want to enlarge this hole. You can either use a step bit, a file, or whatever you have available to enlarge this. I'm going to be using a file attached to a drill. You just want to enlarge it just enough to where you can get the bolt in because we don't want to make that hole too big. You need to double check that your bolts fit in there, and if they do, you can stop filing. I'm going to come back with some spray paint just to cover up the exposed metal that happened whenever we were filing it down. Now we're going to repeat that same process over on the other side of the frame rail. Now I'll go ahead and point out the attachment points. On the side of the frame towards the back of the bumper, we'll have a hole here. That'll be one. Then in the two bottom holes on the bottom of the frame, the larger ones are going to be our two other mounting holes. In order to get our hardware in the frame, I'm going to grab our pull wire. I'm going to put a bend in it, just like that. And I'll take the coiled end, I'm going to feed it in through the hole that's in the side of the frame. And I'm going to start feeding it in until I can hopefully grab it or have it come out the large hole in the bottom of the frame. That's going to be our access hole. And we'll grab a square hole spacer block, slide it over the coiled end of our wire. We'll take one of our carriage bolts and we'll thread it onto the end of our wire. Then we want to push each piece into the frame one at a time. And we'll pull on our wire until we can get that bolt to come through. Now you want to leave the pull wire attached for now, just so we have room to get our hitch in place. I'm going to have that bolt just resting just on the inside of the frame. And we're going to do the same thing for our other mounting hole. It'll help if you put kind of a U-shaped bend in there. It'll just go in this hole, come right out the access hole. Use the same combination of hardware. Put our block in first. We'll thread on our carriage bolt. Push it through the frame. Have it drop down through. Now our last mounting location is going to be a little bit different. We're still going to use our pull wire, except this time we'll slide our block over the coiled end and we'll thread our carriage bolt on before we put anything into the frame. And then we'll feed our bolt in first, followed by our spacer block. And then we want to pull everything down through to where that bolt comes down through the block. Now we're going to repeat that entire process over on the other side of the frame. Now before we put our hitch in place, I would like to go over the mounting holes on the hitch itself, because we are going to have several holes in the bottom here. Now obviously the one on the side is going to be for the side mounting hole, but we're going to be using the hole that's furthest towards the back or the receiver tube opening. We'll skip one and then we'll use the middle one, and these two are going to be for the bolts coming down through the frame. Now with the next set of hands, we're going to lift our hitch up. You want to feed your pull wires through the corresponding holes in your hitch. We'll feed them all through. And once we have all our pull wires through, we'll lift it up to where the bolts come through the holes in the hitch. There we go. And if you can lift it up high enough to where the bolt comes to the side. We should be able to let it rest and the weight of the hitch will hold it, but you do want to be careful and not let the hitch fall. So I'm going to go ahead and remove one pull wire. And then we can grab a flange nut from our kit. You're going to get one on each side, at least hand tight. We don't have to worry about it falling down, and we'll use the same combination of hardware for all of our other bolts. Once you have all your hardware loosely in place, it's very important to pay attention to these secondary holes here, because if we look up, there's weld nuts in the frame, and that's exactly where our exhaust hangers were bolted to. There's a little bit of play in the hitch to where we can slide it back and forth, but you want to make sure that both sides and both holes in each side are lined up so we can get our hanger back up before we tighten everything. I'm going to come back with an 11/16 socket, and I'm going to tighten up all my flange nuts. Now if you are having trouble getting those to stay still and stay in a spot where you think you can get the bolts in place, you can grab one of the new M8 bolts out of your kit and just very loosely put a couple threads in place. That way you know everything's lined up and that these can go in later. And then we'll grab our socket and tighten out the flange nuts. And that way if the hitch does move just a little bit, we still have our bolt in place and it'll trap the hitch in the right position. I'm going to come back with the torque wrench and I'm going to torque all my hardware down to the specified amount in the instructions. You want to make sure you go back and repeat that for all the flange nuts we have left. And we go to put our exhaust hangers back up. We're not going to reuse the factory bolts because we added a little bit of space with our hitch here. So we're going to grab the new longer bolts out of our kit. We'll follow them up with a flat washer. We'll lift our exhaust up just enough so we can get it to line up and we can get our bolts started by hand. We can get the other bolts in place and do the same thing on the other side. Then we can grab our 13mm socket and tighten up all 4 bolts. Then we can take our panel, we'll line it up. You just want to push it in until all those fasteners lock back into place. For our clips, we're just going to come in, find the notch, and just push them down and it'll lock into place. And then you can put your last push pin in. And once you have that done, that'll finish up your installation and your look at the etrailer Class 3 custom fit trailer hitch receiver on our 2019 Ford Escape.